All right, we're going to start the meeting, and I think we have a quorum. Welcome, everybody. It's going to be a great meeting tonight. We're going to have a lot to share with you. We've got Doug Henderson here. We've got Kathy and Molly. So it's going to be a great group. Here's the agenda. New members and guests, upcoming meetups, library sessions, technical moment with Doug, theme of the month, June and July, and then all about photographing flowers. New members, Larry Gillum, Natasha Kemp, and John Burns. Any of y'all here tonight? Well, we certainly welcome new members, especially when they pay their dues. I'm going to ask Larry to say a few words for us. It'd be a surprise to me what he has on his mind, but if anything. Don't go too far.
Everybody. A couple things. Unfortunately, we're seeing a resurgence of that awful thing that we dealt with last year. As a club, we're not doing anything other than taking precautions as necessary. So please do what you think is safe for you. And if we have to go back to some restrictions, we'll put that together. But the board is monitoring that situation constantly. So whatever you feel comfortable in doing is what I would continue to do. Second, we just came off of a very, very successful event in the collaboration with the Bill Pitch Museum on the sign that elephant. It was extremely successful. And the reception was almost 70 people. It was really great. We had a lot of fun. And thank y'all for not eating all the vegetables. I put them in my food processor. There's some V8 juice and maybe some gazpacho. So I had that later. The other thing is that coming in here, we have to set up the room and then put it back down. So I've asked Barry to kind of get a few volunteers together to kind of be the lead in getting the room set up and put back and all of that. So tonight, maybe we can all help before we leave to get out of here. But going forward, Barry will take care of some people from there. So anything else?
I don't guess so.
You want me to say anything else? You want me to say? No.
That'd be good. Thank you, Larry. All right, moving along. Recent meetups. Recent meetups. Well, we had a really good meetup at Gilcrease as the final, assignment Tulsa event. The food was good. Nobody went away hungry. Everybody got a good chance to review all the entries. And Mark Dolph, thanks a lot again for your help experience for doing that. Photos courtesy of Larry Hall. There was a meetup out at the PHOTOG pond, and some people got some pictures. And show a couple of them. It wasn't? Oh, okay. Well, these are PHOTOG pond. So, thanks everybody for coming out for that event. Upcoming meetups. Boy, we got a lot of stuff going on now. Of course, theme of the month coming up at the end of the month here. Also, breakfast with PHOTOGs at Crescent. That's a new location. Lisa Erdock is in charge of that. If you go to the website, the address is on there, and you can find out where to go. It's a cafe, Crescent Cafe. Saturday, August 7th, the Milky Way shoot in Skytook. Again, it's all on the website. Barry, do you have any new information or anything on that, or?
Sorry that we didn't get to meet last month, but we have a new moon, and hopefully we'll have some clear skies. Come with lots of water. It is going to be hot. I think we all expect that this time of year. And we'll meet out at the lake and have a good time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Barry. Also, Thursday, August 12th, the big boy is going to be around town or around Northeast Oklahoma. Pat, are you going to schedule an actual
No,
meetup?
I put, or Kathy, I sent it to Kathy, and she put the schedule on there, because it's leaving Parsons, Kansas at 8 or 9 in the morning, and going through Oklahoma, and going into the night in Callister. And it's got stops on there. It's stopping in Benita,
Right.
Meyer, and Wagner, and Muskogee, and I may have missed one.
Okay, I saw the schedule, and you can see it on our website.
Yeah.
It's on there.
And so I figured people, I live in Claremore, so I'm probably not going to Callister, but I'll probably go up, pick it up north someplace. And I don't know how far I'll go, but I thought maybe
Yeah.
somebody that lives in Muskogee may want to see it in Muskogee.
Okay.
South, so.
So you're on your own, and
It's kind of on your own.
yeah.
I don't know, last time it was through, you couldn't have a group following one another anyway, there were so many people.
All right. Well, thank you, sir. August 14th, Will Rogers Fly-In. That is a great event. It's one of my favorites. Let's see. I think Scott Smith is in charge of that. I don't know if he's here tonight, but
On the fly-in, this may or may not be the last time they do it.
may or may not be the last.
May or may not be. The Will Rogers Memorial has sold the ranch to the Cherokees. It was supposed to, the sale was supposed to go through January 1st, but there's some legal wrangling going back and forth. They still expect the sale to go through. They don't know whether the Cherokee, once they take possession of it, whether they'll do that anymore or not. So it could be the last one. It may go on for another 30 years. I don't know. But it could be the last one. And I say that because if you've never been, it's pretty cool to see.
I'm going to try to put this out here. I don't know if, I doubt if anybody can hear the questions from the audience on the Zoom, but I'll try to repeat them if they're necessary. Oxley Nature Scavenger Hunt. I do believe Mark Robinson is in charge of that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's hopefully we'll have. And I'll have an extensive list of things like wildlife.
Yikes, yikes.
I'll have an extensive list of like wildlife and other items for us to go out and try to shoot. We'll get points off of photos that we take off of the list. We'll come back for about an hour and a half and tally the points up, and whoever has the most points wins. We'll get a small little prize and bragging rights. So hopefully we'll have a good time. Hopefully the weather.
Yeah, that should be a really good event. Thanks for getting it organized. Hi, Ruthie. Okay, October 16th, over in Arkansas, there's a train. I think, Kathy, remind me who's in charge of that.
Sherry and Sally.
Okay, Sherry,
Sherry.
there she is.
Sarah
What's up with that?
Sarah has a Okay, so it says a train, a trolley, and historical sites. So we kind of had this whole weekend planned for an overnight trip. And then the railroad called me and offered to let us do a train on a Sunday, a 4-hour trip, just a photography trip. They'll take us, we'll stop 4 times. They'll let us off of the train to take pictures. We'll stop at the tunnel, Trussels. So they're supposed to, I told them I'd kind of give them an idea about how many people were interested in doing the train. So this isn't going to be where other people are going to buy tickets. I mean, it's primarily photographers. Now, depending on how many people we decide that we may want to kind of let them know that we have, they may let another photography club join in. And I don't know how many cars they'll take. They did tell me that they take an open air car. So I'm not sure I want to be on a train whizzing down the track with bugs hitting me in the face. But anyway, they'll set us up a code, and whenever you book your tickets, you'll use that code so that they know that we're all together. I'll find out some more information from her tomorrow. Hopefully we'll get a little more information from her. So that's, Sarah and I talked it over, and we kind of decided you guys would do that trip and just get on a train and go from Van Buren to Winslow and back. Now, we still plan in the spring on doing an event where we do Van Buren for a couple hours and then go over to Fort Smith for the rest of the afternoon and evening the night. So that'll be the trolley and the historical and all that. But anyway, this will just be a photography tour on the train. We go to Springdale. We meet in Springdale. So you guys kind of give me some feedback. For breakfast, eat after the train ride, or take a sack lunch. It doesn't really matter. And we kind of get to pick our hours. She made the mistake of asking me what's the best light. I said, well, before the sun comes up or right before it goes down, you get a choice. She said, well, I'm not sure we can do that. So there will be people on the train that will tell us about the history of the train and the history about all the stuff we're going to see. So I think it'll be a really fun trip. I think, Molly, didn't you say that you went on this trip with Northwestern Arkansas? Yeah. So I think it'll be a lot of fun.
How do we let you know? RFTV?
Well, whenever she gives me the code, then yeah, you can RSVP, but you'll need to get on their website and buy your ticket. But I don't know how much the tickets are yet because.
So we'll put all of this information on the event on the calendar, so everybody will be directed. Each thing they have to do, because we'll want people to register on our own site, so we know who's going. And from that event, we'll have the link to where people will register with the train and make their payments and that sort of thing. So payments will be directly with them.
And they'll give us a code so that they know we're all together.
So we'll just watch the website, and as soon as you have all your details.
Because she thinks she can give us a discount, but she doesn't know how much yet. So. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Yes, sir.
May I address for just a moment about the breakfast?
Sure, yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
Careful, it's taped.
I'll stand over here
It's-
and not touch a thing.
Oh, it's taped down there, so,
It's taped down?
yeah.
Can everybody hear me?
Can you speak up?
Okay.
I can hear you now.
Okay. Lisa
Sorry.
asked me to address the group this evening about the breakfast at the Knock Tallies location. For those of you who know me and know Lisa, you know that we're celebrating our 20th anniversary.
Hey,
Whether I remain happily married after today depends on whether I address the meeting about this breakfast. She addressed the board during our last board meeting, and she brought up the fact that we've been meeting at Tallies for at least 5 years that we know of. Save the 1 year that we took a hiatus because of the COVID situation, but we've been meeting at
tallies for breakfast for at least 5 years, and it's time for a change. There's a whole bunch of folks that live central and west Tulsa that would be better served by a location in the western area, i.e. Sandy Springs, and we've been there several times, like it a lot. The food is excellent. They've got a huge meeting room that they've agreed to reserve for us, provided that we have enough folks to actually use that room. We're still going to sit there, but whether or not we get anybody else in will depend on how many folks actually reserve, so we can tell them how many will attend. I mentioned the food is good. It's about half the cost of tallies, so if you're budget minded, that'll be a happy thing.
Where is it at?
Where is it at? Does everybody know where Highway 97 cuts through Sandy Springs? On Highway 97, on the south side of the river, you'll find an Arby's. It's directly across from Arby's in that same parking lot. Pretty easy to find.
On the west side.
On the west side of the interstate, as you're traveling south, you'll be on your right-hand side. Richard, what am I forgetting?
It's the easiest way to find it is as you're going up the hill after you cross the Highway 97.
Oh, that's the complicated.
After you cross the Highway 97 bridge and stop at that light there, or go through the light.
That's a
As
good
you're
point.
going up the hill, it'll be on your right.
Thank you for helping. I love you, man. As you go south on the interstate on Highway 97, when you get to the first traffic signal, it's right there on your right-hand side. So it's pretty easy. As you're going up there. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Michael. We're looking forward to it. One administrative point, I'm happy to announce that by our next meeting, we'll have air conditioning down here. So I turned the fan off so that comments from the audience could be heard, but yes, Michael.
I'm sorry, this gentleman just reminded me I was supposed to make mention that it's 7:30, but if you want a good chair, it's 7.
Come at 7 if you want a good chair. If you don't care about a chair, come whenever. 7:30. All right. Upcoming meetups, upcoming education sessions. August 25th, Doug Henderson is going to be with us for the keynote address. He hasn't shared with us yet what it's going to be, but we will soon be finding out. September 22nd, we're going to have Gary Friedman back, and he's going to do an off-camera flash session via Zoom. Our meeting will still be in person here, but I'll have him live on the, and he'll be sharing his screen. And then within a couple of weeks following that, we're going to try to plan a workshop here, set up like we did a couple of years ago, to where we have an off-camera flash workshop. So we'll be looking forward to that. October 27th, Mary Beth is going to give us a lecture on Photoshop layers, all about layers. You gotta love them. November, Shawnee's going to give us a light painting show and tell. So that ought to be a great meeting. December, we don't have anything scheduled yet for sure. January, we got Dave Muller out of Africa. He's going to share with us his experience there. Technical moment. All right, Doug, I'm going to turn the lights on and give you this microphone once I get it off the floor. I don't know if you'll need this one or not. But if you want to stick that one in the Zoom.
Let's see how we do without that one, all right? I'm not talking in the dark. That would be that much better. That was into that. Hallelujah, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to Dr. Denver's Old Time Digital Photography Hour. The place where your pictures are never quite good enough, never quite sharp enough, and you know, one more lens and you'll be happy. That's us, isn't it, right? Yeah. So tonight we're talking about exposure. Exposure. This is a technical moment. Next, in August 25th, what I want to talk about, no nuts and bolts, no technical stuff. Let's talk about what makes a beautiful, a touching, an engaging, a memorable picture. The nuts and bolts is how we have to get there, but if we don't make something interesting and pretty and special, what do we need the nuts and bolts for? Agreed? Yeah, this photography is a funny deal. We have to manipulate a technology to produce an artistic, aesthetic, engaging, emotionally attractive vision. Okay? Whether you like it or not, we need to get the nuts and bolts straight. We need to be able to make a good exposure. What's a good exposure? The definition I want for you of what a good exposure is detail in the area of interest. Say that for me. Detail in the area of interest. Well, why don't we just put it on an auto exposure and go like that? Because the camera doesn't know what is of interest. Your camera has got an electronic brain, very smart little electronic brain. But if you take it apart, you will not find an electronic heart. Your camera has no soul. It cannot know what is beautiful or special or precious or engaging to us. Does that make sense? Do you want this heartless, soulless, cold machine deciding your exposures? No. Hell no, we don't want that. We're artists, we're photographers. We want to put that where we want it. We want to make the picture we want to make, not this camera, this machine put together by some Japanese engineer that does not know what we're looking at. Does that make sense? Somebody say yes. Say amen, brother. Yeah, okay. So this exposure thing, why don't we just put it on auto exposure and run? This is why. To get you to make sense out of this, imagine if the brightness you could see were tones on a keyboard. Okay, so on this, a regular piano has something like 86 keys. And, they go from down here to dum, 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 to ding, 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 ding. That's only 86 tones. But within the limitations of 86 tones, some very beautiful, touching music has been made. Now, if this piano keyboard was the brightness range, the tones you could see, yeah, there are still levels of light below here, but you can't see it. At this point, it all runs into pure black and no detail. And up here, there is a limit to how bright your eyes can deal with the light. And past that, it all goes to white. This range of what you can see is pretty broad. Your camera, with its little wonderful digital sensor in it, its range of tones it can handle is a little more than half. A little more than half. Yeah, on auto exposure, this camera's going to say, oh, somewhere about here in the middle. And what is past this point all goes into featureless, detailless shadows. What is above this point is just blown out highlights. Yeah, that means we're going to lose a lot of good stuff here and a lot of good stuff here. How many times have you taken a picture of somebody standing against a sliding glass door or a nice big picture window, and they silhouette out and have no detail? How many times have you taken a picture of an interior of a beautiful place and all the windows just blow out? Taking stained glass windows in a cathedral. By the time you get detail in the windows, the cathedral's pitch black. We got this narrow range of tones, and if we let the camera decide where to put it, we're going to lose stuff. On manual exposure, we can crank this thing around. We can move this thing around. We're not limited to where this thing goes. We can set this up here and catch, even though we got this limited range, we can catch detail in the darkest areas we can see. And we can crank it further to catch detail where it's too dark for me and you to see anything. Good out on the prairie, you can faintly make out the Milky Way, but you can set that camera to see the Milky Way, galaxies, comets, so many things that we can't see. You start to realize that the stars come in different colors. We can, on manual exposure, make this thing go where we can't go. We can crank it around the other way. We can put it over here, the top of what we can see, past what we can see. We can take a picture of detail on the surface of the sun on manual exposure. You see what a great advantage manual exposure gives to you? Where we want to put this thing where it's of interest. All right. How do we come up with a manual exposure? The best metaphor I can give you is you don't set an exposure or make an exposure, you build an exposure. You build it. This is something like a house. You've only got 4 things in a house. You got a foundation, a floor, walls, and a roof. Everything else is just details. Just say, yeah, okay. On this exposure, we've only got 4 ingredients in the stew. We only got 4 factors in the equation. Factor 1, the foundation. What do you take pictures of? Light. Light is what you take pictures of. Light's the only thing you can see. It's the only thing that sensor reacts to. All your pictures are light. Who can tell me what the word photography means? We got a room full of photographers and you don't know what the word photography means? You'll at least learn this tonight. Photography comes from the Latin drawing with light. Say that again, drawing with light. As a photographer, light is your stock and trade. Light is as important, as foundational to you, as water is to a sailor, as money is to a banker, as sex is to a hooker. Why'd you think that was so funny? Okay, so light is your foundation. Don't take pictures of your kids. Take pictures of the light bouncing off those kids. Don't take pictures of a building, a train, a buffalo, a flower. Look for the light coming off that object. Set up, adjust, plan for, work with, manipulate the light. So light is our foundation. To make this exposure, hold that thought. We got this subject, okay? Now this subject, the deal with it is it has got It has got, in whatever the subject is, it's got very dark areas. It's got shadows. It's got midtones. It's got highlights, and it's got whites. We've got blacks, whites, shadows, highlights, midtones, okay? Say, okay, I need a lot of affirmation, okay? I need this, okay? So talk to me. Yeah, so this subject is got this range of tones. We want to make an image, and this image, if this comes out generally right, the blackest part of our subject is the blackest part still holding detail in our image. The shadows will look like shadows, the midtones will be midtones, the highlights, highlights, and the whites, white. That makes sense. That's typically where we want things to come in. We got to build this exposure up to here. 4 things, starting with light. We're playing the game here. Light. We have got, let's play light. We have got bright daylight. That's our foundation. We got bright daylight. Once we see the light, look for the light, think about the light, the next thing is ISO. If we got a lot of light, we need the lowest ISO we can get. If the light levels are lower beyond that, we may choose to go to a higher ISO, but we would rather start out with, we would prefer the lowest ISO we can get. All right. Here we got ISO. We got 100, 200, 400, 800, 1600, 3200. Now you're seeing something. The way we count in photography is not a linear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's exponential. 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Okay? It doubles our ISO. Your full stops of ISO, 100, 200, 400, 800, 1600, 3200, 6400, yada, yada. Okay, since we got lots of light, we can start with this lowest ISO, ISO 100. After this is all over, you want to come up and play with the blocks, it's fine, that's great. Okay, we got our light, we got our ISO. Once we got those 2 things, we can start imagining a shutter speed. I don't know, whatever we want. What do you say we went with a 1/30th of a second? 1/30th of a second, then we need an aperture. Oh, I don't know, f11 sounds nice. Light, ISO, shutter speed, aperture. We are way the heck overexposed. What should have been shadows is coming in as highlights. We're overexposed. We got to bring this thing back down. All right, we can't go to a lower ISO. We started out with our lowest one. We could go with less light, less time. Instead of a 1/30th, we could go to, what the heck, a 60th. That just brought us down 1 stop. We're 2 stops overexposed still. If we came down 2 stops on that, 1 1/25th, 1 2/50th, aha, aha. The brightest part of our subject is the brightest part of our image. The highlights are highlights, the midtones are midtones, the shadows are shadows, and the blacks are black. We built this thing out with those 4 things right there. We could get up to this point a dozen different ways. We could use different ISOs, different shutter speeds, different apertures to get us there. As far as exposure, we have many combinations that would get us there. There is a reason we might use a little aperture or a big aperture, that depth of field thing. And there's a reason we might use a high short shutter speed to freeze action or a long shutter speed to blur that waterfall, or a higher ISO to push the whole thing up. But you know, we could also manipulate the light. Don't forget that. It's not an exposure triangle with ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. It's not a square, it's a tower, and we build it. The cool thing about a studio is you can go over and dial the light up or down. You can drag out another light. You can drag out 4 more lights. You can drag out as much light as you want and leave the ISO, shutter speed, and aperture wherever you want it. Is this making sense? You're lying to me. We start with a light. We pick an ISO. Then we got a lot of choices of shutter speed or aperture. Okay, yeah, it's nice if you got a big 1.4 lens, or you got our wonderful cameras that will, you know, slow that shutter speed down to a bulb where you just sit there and watch the time go by, or up to around 1/4000th of a second. We got a lot of options there, a lot of variety. Still, at the end of the day, it's light, ISO, shutter speed, and aperture. How can we remember this? This is so complicated. What's your wife's name? Lisa. Light, ISO, shutter speed, aperture. I wish she was here tonight. I wanted her to be here tonight.
too.
Okay.
She's in Texas taking care of some things.
All right. If you don't know Lisa, who is Bart Simpson's sister? Lisa. Right, you've never seen The Simpsons, yeah. Oh, you may think this is cutesy or funny, but as somebody that's put bread on the table since 1985 in photography, to this day, when I walk into a new situation, my first thought is, where is the light? Do I have a lot of light, a little light? Is it hard or it's soft? What color is it? Is it fluorescence, tungstens, sodium vapor, mercury, flash, mixed lighting? But that light is the whole foundation. From that, I'm going to choose an ISO and a white balance. After I've got that, I've got my light, I've got my ISO, then I can start saying, do I want a short shutter speed, a long shutter speed? Do I need a shutter speed so long enough I need to drag out a tripod? To aperture. Do I need a little aperture for a lot of depth of field or a big aperture for shallow depth of field? You build an exposure. You're up. Not yet.
Pretty soon.
Thank you, sir.
You're most welcome.
Let me see. We still got theme of the month. Kathy. You mind handing them out? Way too many gadgets to make this all happen. Okay, so the theme of the month was floral. And the novice runner-up, Lisa Johnson. Not here. Novice first place, Ralph Stovner. You're slacking over there. Advanced runner-up, Melinda Krause. There we go. And advanced first place, Ruthie Sullivan. Nice going. Okay. Yay, way to go. Okay, this month the theme is murals. And you all know the rules, so I don't need to go over all the details. But July 31st, deadline. Okay, I need to turn the lights back down. Okay. Uh-huh.
Is that it's going to be delayed. The announcement.
Well, this just gets the Zoom people. Yes. Let me do this. There's too much crap involved in this. That's all. Is that going to work for you? Oh, okay. You got one there?
So can you see this when I hold it up?
No.
Were those
So,
pictures over here? Yeah, there you
yeah,
go.
there you go. Well,
Sarah, that'll work.
that'll work.
Yeah, flow it out a little bit, but we'll lose this side anyway, so.
Yeah. Put this on my shirt.
Tap on that, make sure it's actually working.
This is the Zoom. Okay, and clicker. And do we have a microphone for over here? Or how far can I go? All this technology to learn. Okay, so the click is going to be. Well, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
I'll either be clicking or. And this is going to click to the next screen. Ah, okay.
Hey, tap on that microphone.
Good? Yes. Well, I talk with my hands, so it may not always be good. So the first thing I want to say is when Bill put this on the website, he made a mistake, but he didn't fix it. So on the website, he called me expert, and I am not. So we have as many people sitting out here that is just as expert at flower photography as I am. And I'm honored to be able to do this because I do love flower photography. Anyway, so we're just going to dive right into all of this. So tonight I'm going to talk about flower photography in general. Well, I was.
Yeah,
I'm gone again. We'll talk about flower photography in general. I'm going to talk a little bit about equipment. I have some show and tell, and then some of the techniques that I personally like. And, but what we're not gonna talk about is the actual nitty gritty of how to take the picture and how to process it. That's a whole different ball of wax. But at the end, we do have some references so that you'll be able to go and figure it out for yourself, find some flower photographers that you might like. I also printed out a list of resources that you're welcome to take with you, so we'll have that. So let's look sort of at general photography. So when you think of flowers and pictures, there's all kinds of ways that we see that. So we'll have fields of flowers that we tend to take pictures of, courtesy of our botanic garden. We have bouquets that we do. The Zoom people are going to end up hiding a lot of these images. Can they be reduced, Bill? He's not listening. Anyway, all right, so we have different bouquets that people will take pictures of, and that's pretty common. A single flower. I mean, how many times are you going somewhere and you see just one flower and it's so pretty? Whether you grab your cell phone or whatever else, lots of pictures, just one flower. Hey, Bill, can the Zoom people be reduced? Some of the images will get covered up. So, not that we don't love you Zoom people. And then another type of flower photography is where we're just going to take a little portion of the flower. So as you can see in that iris, and that's courtesy of Molly, that's her beautiful shot. Or maybe you just take a little part of the back of a flower with the light coming through, or whatever else. There's lots of options when it comes to just the little bits and pieces. Macro plays a big role when you're doing that. So when you think about it, flowers really play a big role in our life. It's very hard almost to go anywhere and not see a flower. Most of us have a flower in our yard, even if it's a dandelion, they exist. You go to a restaurant, you'll see them sitting on a table, you see them in the parks, along the side of the road, botanic gardens, grocery store, lots and lots of places, many, many places. So the other aspect, when you think about life events, there's very few of those where we don't see flowers as well, and they're a big part of many life events. Weddings, obviously, you know, you have to have that bride's bouquet and all the things that go with it. The big centerpieces on the what do you call that? The head table. Obviously, funerals, lots of flowers. It's a very it's a popular way to show sympathy, but at the same time, I think flowers at a sad time can brighten the time. And then, of course, birthdays and anniversaries, that's pretty common too. Just lots and lots of different life events. You'll see a flower there. And then, of course, we have to have flowers because if we didn't, the birds, bees, butterflies, hummingbirds, they would be pretty hungry and we would all be pretty miserable. So it's nice to have those creatures and flowers. So with all the flowers around us, we have to take their pictures, right? So we're going to talk about equipment first. And the first thing we're going to talk about is a cell phone or a cell phone camera. There's very few people today that don't have one in their pocket. And there's very few places that you go that you're not going to snap a quick picture. You might have all your great gear, but it's not with you. So the best camera, as everybody says, is the one in your hand. So these 3 pictures are courtesy of Molly. And what this is also showing, not only can a cell phone take some great pictures, but they also have great apps. So you can look at these 3 pictures, all done, all taken with a cell phone, all edited with a cell app and a phone app, and it's amazing what you can do. When I look at the middle picture, a number of years ago, I did that same effect. It took me a half a day to learn how to do it in Photoshop. I didn't do it as good as that. And that's just straight from an app. So the apps truly have their place. Not that they take the place of everything else, but they really do have their place. And I think that they're worth learning depending on what you're shooting. So then we go to basically your point and shoot camera. And those are great. They're simpler to use. They're pretty compact, great for travel when you can't take everything else with you, and when you want a little bit more than what your cell phone can do. These fit great in, like a purse. All you guys, you'll be carrying your purse and you'll be able to put it right in there and be good to go. And then we move up to the DSLR and mirrorless cameras, which really offer unlimited possibilities. You have your lenses, you have filters, you have flashes, you have a whole addiction to things you can buy for your camera, and they'll all go with this wonderful thing. So anyway, so those are basically the three ways I think that are typical for taking pictures. So let's talk about lenses and filters. So any lens is going to work. It may not do exactly what you want it to do, but any lens can take a picture of a flower. So you use what you have. If you are somewhere and you only have your zoom lens with you, and there's that beautiful flower, well, you still can get a great shot using the zoom lens, especially, say you're at the Botanic Garden and you can't go tromping through all their flowers, but there's that one right over there and you want it. Well, that zoom's going to do it. It's going to give you lovely bokeh. You can get great shots at 400 millimeters. Then, of course, wide angle and macro and lens baby. We're going to talk about lens baby. So, filters, lots of filters. Filters can do great things for you. You can turn a lens into a macro lens by just screwing on a macro filter. And there's a number of those that are available. I do have some that go with the lens baby, so I can show you that. But there's a number of them that will go. Canon makes a couple. I didn't make notes of that, but they do. And then I have this other little gadget that isn't quite as known to everybody. It's called a Raynox 250. It's a very inexpensive option to convert your lens into macro, so you have lots of capabilities that you didn't have without it. So I have to put this down because I'm going to show it to you. So I don't know if you'll hear me or not, but just watch and you'll see it. Okay. So this is a Raynox filter. And what it does, it's got this little spring-loaded business right here. So for example, this is my Sony 50 millimeter. And I can take it, and then I can just snap that onto the front like that. And it gives me wonderful macro possibilities that I did not have without it. So if you're going somewhere and you can't carry all kinds of gear, but you're going to want to do some macro, this little gadget's a great investment. Or if you have no macro, a friend that loves doing macro but was not in a position to be able to buy a macro lens, bought one of these things and loves it and can use it on more than one lens that's already in her pack. So it runs about, I think, $70. They have them on B&H. They have them at Amazon. So several different places. I believe there's also a 150. I'm not familiar with the other ones, but I recommend this one. This one's great. And then we also have extension tubes. So these happen to be for Sony, which there's two tubes, if I can get them apart. Anyway, you get the idea. There's two tubes here, and you can use them by themselves or combined, and this would go on your camera, and then you'd put your lens on the end of these. And what this does, it gets you closer to your subject and gives you more of those close-up capabilities that you didn't have without it. It makes a closer range. All right, so then Lens Baby is also, it's a whole line of lenses all in itself. And they have a number of filters that are going to give you some great effects, real creative stuff. Some of you are going to sit here and look at some of what we're going to show you and you're going to go, huh? But some of you are going to go, oh, that's so cool. So it's okay, whichever way you like it, because it's all interpretation, right? You can listen to a song and think, ugh, but the person next to you loves it. Someone can look at a picture and think, what were they thinking? And this person's going to say, oh my gosh, is that cool? So it's all in the eye of the beholder, right? Right. Okay, so, clicker. All right, so we are gonna talk Lens Baby now. And in our midst is Molly Pezzold, who has been using Lens Baby for 10 to 12 years. Probably has a number of pieces that they don't make anymore, so fortunate she has that. She is our local authority on Lens Baby. I'm probably gonna embarrass her, but she is. Molly knows everything there is to know about Lens Baby. She is right there to help when you have questions, and she loves it when you spend your money on Lens Baby, because she already did, so we might as well too, right? Right? Yep. So without further ado, I'm gonna let Molly come up and she's gonna talk about the Lens Baby lenses, and she's gonna talk about the Lens Baby creative filter system that exists. Yay, Molly. Woo! And if she gets really nervous and doesn't want to talk, I told her she could just dance.
Oh, yeah, I do tap dance. And
Okay,
I will be shuffling off to Buffalo really quick after I do this.
here, you have to be zoomed too.
Zoom.
Yep, there you go.
Zoomed and,
Here's your clicker. That one,
oh my God.
right there.
You know, I shoot Lens Baby because
has
I
to go to
don't
your
want
mouth.
technology to get in my way. I don't want technology to get in my way. That's why I do Lens Baby lenses, and Lens Babies are my friend, whereas a lot of people love the technology. Lens Baby lenses, I love them, as we've probably established. A lot of people might not love them. They may not get it. They may not want to get it. But it is a lens system that was developed probably 15 to 20 years ago by a fellow who lives in Portland, Oregon, who wanted to make available a way of shooting for photographers who wanted to get in camera the most they could get before having to work with post-processing, with Photoshop or any of the others things that are around. So he developed these lenses that some of them have a slice of focus that goes up and down or sideways or diagonally through the lens, and the rest of the frame is soft. Perhaps he has some that are center focused, that on a tilt shift, which many of them are. I think we have a couple of examples of the tilt shift, that you can get your focus, shift a little bit, tilt it, and the rest of the frame is out of focus, or it stretches the bokeh out. We have some examples of these kinds of things. Let me show you by example, because that generally for me works out a little bit better. Probably the most popular lens system that he has are the velvets, and there are 3 velvets in the series. Velvet 56 came out first. This happens to be a double exposure with a Velvet 56. The center is clear, sharp, and was able to do this in camera, a double exposure in camera. So the outer petals are softer, and the bokeh then is very much out of focus. This is another example. I don't know if you can see this as clear as it actually is in the photograph, but this whole center is very sharp. So we have an opportunity with this lens and with the Velvet 85, and in a minute I'll show you the Velvet 28, to get This is straight out of camera, straight out of camera. A look that is soft with sharp edges, sharp center, fading off into nothingness, a glow that is ethereal, or these are more examples. The Velvet 28 is 28 millimeter. Let me just say that. 56 millimeter, 85 millimeter, 28 millimeter. Each of them are 1 to 2 macro. Each one of them at the wide end, 1.8, very wide lenses. At the other end, f/22, very sharp. If you need a sharp picture, you can get it. If you want the glow that is soft throughout, or finding your one spot of focus and the rest of it being fading off into a soft bokeh, soft creaminess, you can get it. It will work. It's what you want. It allows you to do this in camera rather than spend time on a computer. Thank you. I'm not a computer person. I can do, Doug Henderson has tried his dead level best. And I promised him a long time ago I would never darken the Photoshop door again. Sol is another option. It's a lens that has little bokeh blades that can be moved into place in front of the lens or out of the way. We have an example of that for you to look at later. It gives you texture. You still can get your center, but there's texture that shows up on the outside edges. It's real interesting. The Obscura is the newest offering, and that's a pinhole, which is totally different from any of the other things that they have done so far. But it gives a vintage look. This is in color, same picture in black and white. This is Kathy's picture. You see, it takes a lot of light, a lot of light to use these. This is aperture f/90. This one, is this f/90 as well? There's an f/45 and f/22, and they are all three in one lens. You dial, well, they're holes. And you can dial from the aperture f/90 to f/45, which is a sieve. Lots of little dots around a bigger dot, or hole, I guess. f/22, which are rings of glass around the center. So it gives you a very out of focus vintage look, but it's really cool. It's very neat. But it takes some getting used to. Twist, center, totally in focus. If you have your subject out from the background will have this swirl. There's another one, it's a trio. We don't have a picture of that. Another lens that's a trio that has three of the options built into it, and you can dial them around, just kind of the same type of dialing that this has, which is velvet, soft focus, and twist. So you can have that one lens on your camera, go all day, do all kinds of things you might want to do, and it's a small offering, kind of like a pancake lens, and it works really well. All of these lenses we're talking about for floral photography. Some of them are great for landscape photography. The Velvet 28 is tack sharp, pinpoint sharp at f/22, but yet it focuses down 2 inches away from the subject as well. They are being used now in videos, in movies. So these are very versatile. They give you wonderful looks. We've talked about the lenses. Now, here's a moment or two to talk about the wands, the prisms and the facets that are available now. It goes on a ring that you can screw on any lens, not just Lens Baby, but any lens. And if you want to do any fractal photography, any use with prisms or faceted glass or colored gels, with magnets, clip on, and then you can set them up the way you want to and take your picture. If you don't like to do it that way, and I tend to hand hold mine, but you just hold it up real close to the lens, and you get lens flares, you get color, rainbows. These are, now I forgot. Stretch. Yeah, the stretch glass. This is another example of the stretch glass and the rainbow effects that you can get with them. This is the seahorse. And this is, once again, I think this was probably the whatever this is called. I'm losing it, you guys. I'm sorry. But anyway, the faceted glass will show the different colors as well as a rainbow filter. This is on a smartphone. You just hold it up to the camera on your smartphone and go to town. It does this weird, wonderful stuff.
No editing.
What?
No editing.
No editing, of course. No, we're doing this yesterday to have some fun. We were in the kitchen. Look at that, just silly fun. That's one of the nice things about Lens Babies. You can have fun with it. It is different. It is allowing you to do some creativity that you might not have thought you could achieve, or that you didn't know how to achieve. Perhaps you haven't taken Doug's class yet. You don't know how to do this in Photoshop. It's an option. Just enjoy it and practice, 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 so that you too can shoot extraordinary. Thank you. I think we got it.
Thanks, Molly. One of the things too, just to add to what Molly said, is all of these lenses are totally manual. So manual focus, yeah, manual focus. And so that's a little bit tricky in itself, but it's definitely a plus when you want to pick where you're focusing. It really lets you do that. But yeah, we had a great time just playing and just holding that up to your cell phone. It's amazing the different things that you can get. I'm going to just hold up real quick a little bit. So this is one of the lenses, the Soul, and I don't know if you can see, but see how this road sort of tilts? Can you see how you can tilt like that? And you probably can't. Can I borrow your flashlight? I can show you the inside. This one, well, this might be my second favorite. I'm not sure. But can you see how there's blades in there?
Do you want me to move them for you?
Yeah.
I'll hold it so you can move them.
So there's blades inside there. Right now they're covering the lens, so you're going to get a really big effect. You can open those up and not have them there at all. Or when you're taking a picture, you can select how much of the blade you want to show. This is a really fun lens. So, and that was a couple of the pictures that we did look at. I would also say the big picture, when you look at the cost of lenses, specialty lenses and whatever else, I feel as though these are really reasonably priced. That one that I just showed you, was that $249? Around $250? That's not expensive in the big picture. The twist, that's another one that's pretty fun. We had one picture that we use that in. So when you do that, there's a little ring here that you can twist and it gives you your effect. And I bought that used, so I don't know what it actually runs. The Velvet 56 I have was originally for my Canon. And when I jumped over to Sony, I now use it with an adapter. So kind of the question that, and I don't know, maybe somebody here would know. So this is a 56 millimeter, but when I add this adapter to the lens so that it'll work on my Sony, it's pushing it out further from the sensor. So would somebody know or think that that's changing it from a 56 to something different? It's almost like an extension tube. So therefore, because I want just a plain Velvet 56, we should probably explain this to my husband so he'll understand why I want to buy a new one that's for Sony. And if I do that, I'll have a Canon one that's for sale. This was my first one that I got. You got it for me for my birthday. Oh, I bet 5 years ago. And I started out with it, and I was really frustrated because there is a learning curve to it. You have to use it a lot. And it wasn't until Molly was in my life and had a little push and a shove here that I really got into these lens babies. But this one's an awesome lens and probably a really good first lens. Would you think?
You know, most people think the Soul is the best first lens to have.
Oh, the Soul, yeah, the Soul.
And then the 56 is the second most popular, and from there it goes on. But the tilt shift aspect of the Soul really is fun and very versatile.
The other aspect of these lenses too, as Molly was talking about, is the versatility. A lot of you may know Shelley Wood. She's one of our photogs, and she uses the Velvet 28, swears by it for her landscapes. So if any of you follow her, she does great work. She has beautiful pictures, and that's one of the lenses she uses. Okay, so lens baby, we talked about that and all of that. So let's see what's next. Oh, tools and gadgets. I love tools and gadgets. Okay, so we already talked about some of these. There's some macro filters right here that we didn't talk about, but your tripod, your platypod, real important things. Everybody know what a platypod is. It's just a little gadget like this to put your camera on. Set it way down low, so you can get that low perspective. You go to Philbrook and you're not allowed to bring a tripod. This works really good. You can put it on top of a fence, a bench, whatever. What else we have? So a third hand. This is called a third hand. And there's all different kinds. I have one that actually has 4 hands to it. And this is very helpful when you do flower photography to just clip one flower. Say, for example, you're going to do one flower and that's going to be your background. There's your whole setup right there. I'll hold the flower for you. Then we have a floral frog, which I never heard about till the last year. This is what it looks like. It's very heavy. I didn't realize that you'd actually put it in a vase or something like that to hold your flowers, because I always just stick the flower on it to take a picture, but Wally mentioned, oh, you put it in a vase. These are real convenient for when you're just doing one stem, stick it on there and it holds the fire in a really good way. Okay, a clamp, Wimberley clamp. People know what that is maybe? This is a Wimberley clamp right here. I happen to have it attached to the edge of my light box just because it wouldn't fit on the table. It can also attach to the side of your tripod. So for example, you're out shooting somewhere and there's a flower in the wind, whatever, you can hook it to your tripod, then to the flower, it helps it from blowing, whatever else, anything you want to just put right in front of your camera and not have to hold. Tweezers are real helpful, nice long ones to arrange things, and of course bases. There's glass panels that you can shoot through to get some great flower effects. We talked about the extension tubes, diffusers and reflectors. Everybody pretty much knows what those are. This is a little one that just goes to 12 inches, fits in your bag great. Okay, and a focus rail, I'm going to show a few pictures in a minute of that. So this is a focus rail, and typically it's used with macro photography so that all the focus and the detail from the beginning of the picture all the way to the end, everything's in focus. It allows you to do that. And then of course there'd be a flash, you know, people use flash, and different LED lights, and all kinds of different lighting effects that you can use. So this is the light pad. I have two light pads, and this particular one right here, right now I have it standing vertically. I have this wonderful little gadget that my husband made for me that holds all kinds of things. And this is great when you want to photograph, say, a vase of flowers or that type of thing. It gives you a background that's all lit up. And there's several different techniques that you can use with it that are really fun. I have another light pad that's just laying right here on the table. This one actually happens to be my favorite. I use it the most, and unfortunately, when I went to buy a second one, it's discontinued, so we don't have that anymore. The other little tool that I didn't mention is a light box, and I did not bring one of those with me. Most of you are probably familiar with them. A lot of people use it for product photography. This is one of the helpful things that I love. I have quite a few of them. So basically what I've done is I've printed textures on my printer, and they are, actually I did it on my photo printer. Makes a big difference between an inkjet and a photo printer. And even better, send them to Bedford's Apertures to have them printed, and they'll come out nice. And then they're just glued onto a foam board. And so I have different ones on different sides, and they make great backgrounds. During COVID, when you were stuck in the house, but flowers were the option, it gave me something to do. I made backgrounds, as well as a good background for when you're taking flowers. So I think that's all the little tools and gadgets. So where's that clicker? So now let's talk about some techniques, because there's lots of them. So I'm just going to talk about some of the ones that really intrigue me, that I like to do, that's a little bit different than, say, macro or just a flower when you go here or there. So this particular technique, the way these shots were taken, they were taken outdoors, bright sunlight, and using a flash. So you're able to set up your camera just the right way, and you get that beautiful black background, and your flower is highlighted. The open tulip actually is a color shot, even though it looks black and white. However, in post, oftentimes I do convert it to a black and white, and it makes really nice effects. Then we have focus stacking, and these are Wally shots. These are great. And I dare you to find a spot in either one of those pictures that's not in focus. And so this is that she would have utilized something very similar to this to take those pictures. Okay, exposure stacking. That's one of my new addictions, I guess we'll call it. So Harold Davis is a person that does this method with the use of a light pad and flowers, and I love what he gets. It's not typical HDR, although you can incorporate HDR with it. HDR, for me anyway, I think when you do HDR and you're merging your image, you're kind of giving the control to the computer. And after the computer does its thing, yes, you can manipulate it certain ways. But when you do this particular exposure stacking in Photoshop or any software that can do layering, you do it layer by layer, and you have total control, total freedom to edit it how you want to do that. So the way that it works, I take a light pad, put it on the floor, and I do my arrangement, whatever my floral arrangement's gonna be. Sometimes it's lots of flowers, sometimes it's just pieces of flowers, it's just whatever. So here's an example where this is 7 exposures, and everything remained the same except the time, the length of shutter speed. So you use a very low ISO in this scenario. 54 millimeters is what it took to be able to get it into my frame. So that's the reason for that. And then real high f-stop. So the f22 is going to give you lots of detail. So you can see we're going from a really overexposed image all the way to a dark image. And what you do, you take these and you layer them in Photoshop, and you're going to have your lightest to darkest, and then you're going to use a combination of masks and opacity and all that kind of good stuff that Doug could teach you. And then your ultimate image comes out like that. So I am hooked on doing that. When I was at the Botanic Garden, they were cutting down tulips. And so all these tulips are falling apart, and I said, oh, can I have the tulips? She says, well, they're all dead. I says, no, they still have life, they still have life. So, so I took them, well, wait a minute, I'm getting ahead of myself. I wanted to show you the difference between the HDR and the 7 exposures. And there's nothing wrong with the HDR. What was happening with this, though, I used the exact same 7 images, and it always showed the background that it was photographed on, even though it was the same images that I used for the other one. But so this was one of my dying tulips that I brought home from the Botanic Garden, and then after they really died, I did several images and only used the petals. There was nothing else, just petals. The tulips on the left, the tulips on the left are laying on the light pad. So that was done pretty much the same process. I don't know how many layers I had that I stacked and focused. And the image on the right is in a vase. And so that one is a technique where you would stand it up in front of the light pad, but you still will do the images from light to dark and process it the exact same way. I don't know if it's my second favorite or first favorite, texture. I love adding textures to floral pictures. The first picture with the high key white background was really, that was done again in front of a light pad. It was not done with a number of processes or layers. If I remember correctly, this was just one shot. But it just seems so sterile, and after I've been playing with textures, I thought, well, this just needs a little bit more. So the paper, kind of paper, grainy texture, I added behind it, and I prefer it. Either way, I think they're really cool pictures, but I do like the softness that it gives it, adding the texture behind it. So this picture you just saw a few minutes ago that I took outdoors in full light, and it had the black background. So I have added, I believe, 2 textures to the back of this flower, and I like it better than it was before. It just sort of gives it a new kind of element and dresses it up a little bit. You'll see that on some of the petals, you still see the texture because I didn't paint it off or brush it off, but the middle, I wanted to have kind of clean so that there was a focus. But again, that's just another way to use textures. And this particular concept to me, I like a lot because sometimes you can get that great picture of a flower or a bee or whatever, but the background's so busy, it really detracts from it. So by adding, this actually I think is a couple of textures, but you still can tell what was behind it, but it lets the bee and the flower really stand out. And these same techniques on flowers, a lot of you have probably used or seen. Matt Kloskowski does it on animals and birds and whatever else. It's really not much different than that at all. Okay, so how did I get from that one to that one? So the first one is actually one of those stacked images. So first I played around doing a exposure stacking. So that was a number of pictures to get to that. And then after I did that, I thought, nah, let's do something to it. So I have quite a collection of textures at this point. I'm addicted to textures. And you can also make your own textures really easily. Just take an out of focus picture and you got a texture. So this particular image was done by first adding the music. And when you add the music, at a certain point, you had to kind of mask it out and erase it in the vase. But the vase really lost something once that music got put on top of it. So that's the green texture, which I shrunk, transformed, got down, a lot smaller. It didn't cover the whole flower. It only covered the vase. And then using brushes and that sort of thing, you let the green show through. And then after you've done all that, you have both things combined, and the music is a little bit, the opacity is a little bit softer on that in the final image. But that's kind of how you get from one point to another. Then this week, those of you who are 52 frames, and we have a lot of you here, our extra credit challenge was this Pep Ventosa technique. I had never heard of it. Molly Swizz, she told me about it, but I don't remember. But anyway, it is really cool. And again, it's not going to be something for everybody, because you're going to look at some of the pictures that people do with that, and you're going to think, could they not get it in focus? What's the problem? But it's not necessarily meant to be in focus. So this particular image is, you can see the flower on the left. I think I counted about 18 petals. And after you go through the process of doing this, it's got lots of petals and it's twirling and swirling and a whole different look to it. This is Shelley Wood's picture. She did that this week. She's in our 52 group, and she's also a member here, and those were her pictures. So one of the techniques to this that both of us use is you go the whole way around your image. So the flower that I did was stuck into this frog thing, like this, and it was on a Lazy Susan. So I set my camera up, my background up, I had everything that was stationary that was going to stay in place, and then I just turned the Lazy Susan till I made a full rotation, and I probably took, well, I took more than 14 pictures, but I only used 14. And then again, it's the same process. You layer them in Photoshop, you change opacity to each layer, and then your end result is whatever you want. Some people will take and change the sequence of the layer, like these happen to be in the order that I took them. But you could take and do it backwards, you could change them all around. There's some really great examples of it. So it's one of the things that I'll probably be playing with a little bit more. So that's a new effect to play with. So resources, there are many. I have a sheet right here that everybody can take home if you want it. Obviously, you can take a picture of the screen if you want to do that too, but if you're like me, you take a picture of the screen and then it's lost in your phone and you never find it again. So I do have a handout if you'd like to do that. So there's favorite flower photographers, and that's kind of a list between Molly and I that we put together. On this list, I have some real favorites that I follow all the time, but these are great resources when you're looking for some, if you're interested in trying to find a photographer that really specializes in flowers, great people to learn from. And then there's also some websites here that will show you where I learned a lot of the techniques, and then where to go to get textures. There's a lot of free textures out there, and there's a lot of free information on how to do it. You know, we all learn things differently. So for some people, you maybe need a workshop or a hands-on, a Doug class. If that's what works for you, those things are all available. You may need something, sometimes I need YouTube, so I can play the YouTube, do it, go back, go back, go back. There's lots and lots of YouTubes out there. Kathleen Clemens has a great class that's on Creative Live, and a lot of you probably are familiar with that and subscribe to it. And of all the ones that I listed with textures, I believe they all have some free tutorials on their websites and also free textures. And they'll show you how to use them. So great information that's right there. There's the link for Lens Baby, the Raynox 250, Amazon B&H. And then, of course, we all want to shop local whenever we can. I know that at Bedford Camera and Video, I talked to Robert, and these are pretty much all things that they carry there. So if you want to get it now and not go online or whatever the case, then you're good to go right there. And some of these little things that we use, Hobby Lobby, places like that, you'll be able to pick them up. So that, in a nutshell, is my flower photography. So I forgot to ask, who here has taken a picture of a flower? Has anybody never taken a picture of a flower? Is anybody gonna take a picture of a flower? Oh, come on, Tim, raise your hand. Patrick, you're gonna take a picture of a flower. Because there's flowers everywhere, so they're in your pictures whether you want them or not. So anyway, does anybody have any questions at all?
How much is that Christmas present I gotta buy?
Oh, I have to wait till Christmas? The lens, the velvet? Oh, maybe 500, 550. How much is it?
It's only $499.
It's less than 500. But anyway, so if anybody wants to take a look at any of the things that I have spread out up here or have any questions, you're welcome to do that. Doug's got a great display over there too, so there's lots of toys here tonight. Anyway, okay, Bill, I guess you take it away now. Oh, I gotta give you all the stuff.
Great evening. And I guess the problem is going to happen. That's really it tonight. Next month we'll have air conditioning. We may have a better speaker arrangement for walking around and so forth. We're still dialing this whole thing in here, so bear with us. Thank you, everybody. Have a good evening. Take lots of pictures of flowers.
What about to say, it's actually the second one.
You plug it into something, right? It's not like a battery.
You know how that all came about? Somebody, I forget who it was, had a So I studied it. And that's what I posted, so I made one. This was.
Yeah, we got one.
Check this stuff. That's a bolt. That was all.
I don't,
I still got all the stuff with the followers, soaked in my junk in front of me. Well, the guy that actually resigned was the son that fucked her. So, yeah, so she sent me, that's why she asked me. You're good at take a picture of the club. Well, you know, okay, I give you an example. You know, most things we had